We are live. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Tackle Talk. Hey guys, listen, I had to make a bunch of adjustments. I had to turn a bunch of stuff up and down on the board. So do me a favor. For those of you that are in here and hanging out, appreciate you guys joining us this evening. If it's your first time here, you're going to learn a little something tonight, and you're going to figure a few things out about your fishing game that just might change the way you catch fish. Or you might leave a comment below and tell me I don't know what I'm talking about, therefore forcing me to get into doing some editing and showing you exactly what I'm talking about. So before we get started, big shout out. We got Wes, we got Kristen J, Robert Sharp in the house. There's a couple of my buddies in here hanging out. Appreciate you guys hanging out tonight, doing a little time with me. So I'm really excited. If you guys know, if you're friends with old Outlaw, he caught a pretty big today. That was pretty good. But let me ask you guys a question real quick. Audio. 1, if it sounds good. 2, if it's too low. 3, if you are way too high, bud, because everything looks good on my side, but at the same time, what I got going on, what comes out on a live feed and the live settings, a little bit different, you guys. I also got some new music tonight. We got a bunch of stuff going on. Got a couple of cool baits. We're going to talk about doing some neat stuff. I think you guys are going to enjoy this. Like I said, give me 1 second, guys, and we will get started. All right, Robert says a little low. All right, guys, we're going to do a little test here. We're going to bring in a little bit of the back end. All right, what does that sound like? Rachel, anybody? Does that sound a little low? Did that bring me in a little bit fuller? Did that create a little bit more feedback on the back end, or does it sound like I'm poppy cracky? Wes Sims says, that's it. Kristen J said double thumbs up, so we know they're both working. It's got 2 thumbs and hears me good. That girl. Rachel said fuller like Anna Nicole Smith. I was really going for the more feminine version of the once popular triathlete, but I'm not going to say his name because he doesn't exist anymore. All right, guys, without further ado, tonight we are talking crankbaits. And I know what you guys are thinking. Oh, my God, how big is that thing? This is a KVD 3.5. This is actually a 3.5-inch KVD shallow runner, 3 to 5 foot square bill crankbait, chartreuse, and what looks like black, a little bit of chartreuse, maybe yellow, and hard white body. What's interesting about this one? All right, let me block that so you guys can hear. Oh, hooks are sharp. Oh. No noise, guys. There's no clickies. There's nothing in this. Silent runners. And the other one that we're going to talk about tonight is... Don't hook me. Don't... Rattlers. When to use both, when not to use them, because there is a difference and there is a time of the year and there is a different way to fish them that is going to require you to either decide whether you're going to rattle or whether you're not going to rattle. And not only are we going to talk about different crankbaits as far as the shallow runner crankbaits in the 3 to 5, but we're going to go all the way downtown. We're going to talk about why these things have these big lips on them. We're going to talk about the difference in these style baits. We're going to talk about the difference in the presentation. We're going to talk about the differences in even some of the more customs. And these are kind of interesting. Let's take a look at that. You know, we got a flat bill rounded on both sides. You want to talk about erratic. This is actually from a company called Evergreen International, for those of you that know about some of the Japanese companies that like to play in the game of fishing. Well, Outlaw's been killing it with the Jackall. That's another Japanese bait company. I got myself real good in the finger, guys. Some of these got amazing hooks, and we're going to get into some of these tonight. But before we do, let's take a moment to check out the gear. You guys remember this hat? The Straight Heathen Black. That was a good one. You can find that one. You guys know where. And the other one, the Hardcore. Another big one, heathensquad.com, guys. Don't forget, support the channel, support all the good stuff, buy the gear. It's cool. It gets us a chance to go fishing once in a while. I've been just slammed up. What a couple of weeks. Before we get started tonight, guys, we're going to have a story. Who wants a story? One in the chat for story time. Trisha made it. Wes is here. Ice. Robert Sharp. Hey, Ice, what's going on, bud? Rachel, my favorite. Wes says dinks. Listen, Wes, I pull them, all right? I don't discriminate. I don't care. Listen, my next boat, I've already decided. This is what's... Okay. You guys want to know why it's taken me so long to buy a boat? I'm going to tell you why. Because I've yet to find a boat manufacturer that's got big enough tow mirrors for me to buy it. I know what you guys are thinking. Man, what you need tow mirrors on your boat for? See all them bass I'm pulling, fool? Rachel said, name my boat Lord Dink. Whatever, Rachel. All right, back to story time. So... you guys remember the show? You guys remember our supercar, the Taurus? Taurus. I missed the Taurus already. The road. That fateful road down there finally claimed the Taurus. It broke a power steering line that then burned out the power steering pump. I spent 2 days putting a power steering pump on it. I broke 3 specialty tools in the process of taking this pump off and putting it on. Absolute nightmare. So I was forced to buy a car. Unfortunately, it will never see that road. I've decided there's just no way for me to ever drive that car down that road to go fishing again. So that's a little bit interesting. But unfortunately, there will be no boat in my near future. So that kind of sucks. You know, I got to take a couple of years now. Put it back in the plan. I got some house repairs. You know, every couple of years you got to do something to the house. So where I was thinking I was going to do something special for my birthday this month and, you know, make it a big surprise and have this big unveiling of me buying a boat, that didn't happen. No. But I bought a car instead, so that's cool. I mean, I guess I got to be responsible. Like, I'm a dad and stuff, you know what I mean? That's a little... you got to make the right decisions when you're a dad. All right, guys. Now, let's get back into this. Good times, right? Good times by all. Let's see. Nothing but love. Okay. Oh, look at you guys. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, bud. It's all this being responsible. It's not easy, man. You know, it's not easy. I still got 3 reels down. I'm just a mess. Like, it's going to take me a minute to get back in my fish game, man. I'm watching all my buddies pulling bigs and stuff, and meanwhile, I'm struggling to just keep my rods casting. I'm so behind in life right now. I'm kind of taking a break. All right, man? That's all I'm going to tell you. All right. No, let's get back to the show here. Guys, what are we looking at when we're looking at crankbaits? First of all, we're looking at pressure. How much are these fish pressured? How often are these fish in situations where they're going to have a bait tossed by them? Because I have a rule of thumb, and the more pressure you have, the quieter the bait. And what I mean by that is, if you notice, I'm guilty of this, okay? I'm very guilty of this. I tend to spend a lot of time watching other anglers when you get around, you know, 4 or 5 boats passing by, you see a couple of people cast. I'm not really concerned with where they are in direction. I'm like really watching their bait come out. Like, I'm literally watching them cast their bait, and I'm like, 1/2 ounce chatterbait and a white. Looks like he's got a craw trailer on there. And I'm just waiting for you to bend a hook, you know, bend a rod. As soon as you bend a rod, bud, I can tell you right now, I'll cut a knot and tie fast. But when I don't know what anybody's throwing, and I do know what kind of waters I'm looking at, then I do tend to be a little bit more specific. And that's why the crankbait's really been a staple for me as far as, you know, going back in the days and catching some fish on something that I know if I just throw the repetitions in there, it'll actually work out for me. That's what the crankbait's done for me. Now, the thing to remember about the crankbait, guys, is it is a match the hatch type of bait. So you're going to really want to look at the way that if you've got like shad runs and stuff like that, this is a bait that you might want, you might not. You know, you at that would fall more of like a stick bait category or jerk bait, and we'll get into those. I got like tons of those we can go over here in a little bit, but like another episode of just jerk baits when that season comes. But as far as something that like moves within the 3 to 5 foot range, 3 to 5, and I say that because again, you guys remember the 3 retrieves, right? Burn it, off cadence, drag and drop, drag and drop. You know, so not really gonna have a drag and drop because these are a floating lure. As far as the burn it, always works. You guys know, give a fish a split second to look at it. He's got to decide if he's gonna hit it or if he's gonna run away from it. So that's a big deal. Iceman, it's been windy up your way, huh? That's a rough one. Let me get through the spiel here, guys, and do this whole episode here in the upfront and beginning, and then we'll have a little hangout with all of us just doing a couple of minutes. But you guys can talk amongst yourselves, because I laugh, because sometimes I look up and some of the conversations that I see when I get in there are like way off date, because my chat line is like really weak. I get occasional chats, and that's where it's kind of funny to me, because I just walk into the conversation, and I'm like, oh, look at that. The off cadence is going to be an important one. We already went with the burn it. The off cadence is going to be another important one, and I'll tell you why. When these baits swim down, they swim down rather quickly, and that how quick they swim down is determined by the distance from the tip to the nose. Now that determines how quickly that bait gets down to what it's considered to be its depth. Now that depth is going to be perceived by the actual width and size of this paddle tail front, or in this case, this flat billed, square bill is what they call these square bill crankbait. Square billed crankbait. 3 times. Square bill crankbait. Bang. Nailed it. Then you're going to notice some of the larger ones. This is another 2.5. Sexy shad on this one. You're going to notice he's got that big wide front, but that's just because of the big wide back. But then you're going to have this one actually has a bit of a concave contour to it. You guys can see that right there. Now, what's the difference, guys, between convex and concave? Well, I'll tell you how to remember. Concave always goes down. Well, just like caves go under the ground, concave goes down, convex goes up. Now, typically, you're not going to see anything that really bends up. So you'll have that little that little lip in the front, and what that does, that little concave indentation there, actually causes the wobble. So the greater that concave indentation is, the greater the wobble. Now, let's look at it one of two ways. Is it more efficient to have less wobble and a more robust search pattern, or is it a real tight flutter that they're looking for that day? And that's kind of where the crankbaits come in, because you can have those big wobblers, and I'll show you certain baits that have a big wobble, and then I'll show you some that have a really tight little small shimmy to them, which is rather interesting too, because in the burn it technique, that small shimmy is gonna create a search pattern automatically. The problem is that if you burn it too fast, it's gonna cause that bait to roll, and you're not gonna catch a single thing. So there's that aspect to the crankbait, that you really have to give it a physical feel when on your retrieve. You'll know if your burn it's too much because you'll physically feel the line doing a barrel roll. You'll know that it's not enough because the bait's kind of just twitching along at the top. You need to give a little bit more to the reel speed just so it gets down to its target depth. Unless your target depth is just bringing it across the top rather slow, and you're looking for a smaller presentation than something like a torpedo, or something like a devil's horse, maybe a 4 or 5.5 inch stick bait, top water floating stick bait, or a prop bait. Hold on, guys. Getting some background music. Got to get something to drink. I'm going to teach you guys a little bit different retrieve. as far as how I like to retrieve crankbaits. And I know it's going to sound kind of strange, but I've taken people fishing before and actually utilized this method and shown them that I can bring fish up from places they never could imagine. Now, one retrieve that I want to tell you guys about is, you know how we talked about the drop and drag, you know, or the lift and pop, or whatever you want to call it, drop, drag, lift, pop. It's all the same momentum. It's that 45 coming up to 90, 45 coming almost up to 90, and just basically bringing that bait up, forward, and down, up, forward, and down. Well, with this method, and what I like to do with the crankbait is, on my off cadence, I will actually put a drag into what I'm doing. And I know it's going to sound crazy. What do you drag? What do you mean, drag? Like on your reel? No. What I mean is a sweeping technique that I utilize the rod, in which I drag, kind of like a backswing for a golfer. Has anyone ever watched a backswing on a golfer? That is exactly what I'm doing with my rod. I'm down. I've got my nose down. I tend to reel these based on the depth that I'm looking for. I try to keep them down at their max depth because I want to fish them in an area that might be anywhere between 4, 5, maybe 6 feet deep. 2 feet is kind of pushing it. You're going to have a little bit of a slow retrieve. I wouldn't suggest throwing these anywhere where you're looking at targeting 1 to 3 feet unless you have a specific one that targets 1 to 3 feet. I choose between 3 and basically 5 feet, and that's a max crank on a 5 feet with my rod tip down. Now, I try to fish a lot of these rod tip down because my hook set's going to look more like a sweep or a golf backswing, in which I'm just basically going to motion my body in a drag to the rear. The hooks are kind of interesting. We'll talk about those here in a little bit, but I'll show you guys what I mean by that motion. Hold on. And I know a couple of you guys looked at my bottom. That's terrible. No bottom lookers. All right, guys. So what I mean by this is, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to sit right here for a second, then I'm going to get up and I'm going to demonstrate this. So as I'm reeling and as I'm retrieving, in the event that I do feel a sudden jerk, a stop, or contact with something, I'm going to do a hook set that looks like a sweep. And when I'm not utilizing that sweep technique, I'm in the hook set, I'm going to utilize that sweep technique to give a sudden burst of speed to my bait for just a few feet, and then I'm going to give it a pause. So I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so as I'm reeling, right? As I'm reeling away, and every once in a while, I'll give a drag. Reel, 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 and a drag. Reel, 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 and a drag. Now, what ends up happening is my hook set looks about similar. I'll be in the process of reeling, drag and pin, and hold the fish back, keeping the hook set and bringing the fish into the boat. Now, one of the most scary things, here's what's interesting about that particular, the sweep style hook set, and this is why I'm going to tell you. It looks really, really cool when you do a good sweep hook set because you get a real good parabolic bend on your rod. The only issue is you're fighting to keep that fish under the water. Don't over reel that fish to the point where the fish ends up at the top of the water column, gets out of the water, and allows its head to shake. You want to make sure that you keep that fish down under the water, move him back towards the boat in such a manner that the fish literally swims along with it and doesn't realize that it's caught, violently caught. Those big jarring hook sets, those are really, really cool, but on a smaller hook like these, and that's what I'm going to show you guys today, it can be devastating to your hookup percentage. Just so we're on the same page, you could end up pulling the hooks free from the fish's face. You can feel how many hooks are in the fish's face just by the fight that the fish will give you, because sometimes it feels like a giant fish and it feels oh so awkward, but it's actually just foul hooked. Now that sweep method, that sweep hook set technique, that sweep pull through, that drag style, side drag, sweep drag, whatever you want to call it, and we'll just call it the sweep. Okay, that's just so we have an easy way for everybody to communicate with the same vernacular. Rod's in the house. What's up, Rod? Rod's driving. Oh, you guys are terrible. Drag the dinks out. Thanks, Wes. Appreciate that, bud. Okay, so now we're going to talk about more of the more interesting things. Now, this company here, Evergreen International, they make these little Japanese baits. And one of the things that I noticed is that you have neither convex nor concave on this lip. It appears to be almost perfectly flat, just given the small amount of coverage that it has. Now, let's look closely at the Strike King profile. And the thing you're going to notice about the tip of the Strike King profile is it's just as wide, if not wider, than the fattest part of the bait. You can see that by the fact that the tip is covering a small part of my fingers on both sides. Now, what you're going to notice about this little Evergreen International is it doesn't at all. It's actually about an 1/16 of an inch wider body than it is front. So you can imagine this thing is going to have the smallest, tightest little wiggle, because the water, what actually causes the wiggle, the waggle, whatever you want to call it on the bait, is the amount of water that gets forced out around the bait. Having a wider mouth means that the you guys know how water works, right? Have you ever not vacuum your pool, but scrape leaves out of your pool? You understand velocity, water velocity, how it works, how breaking, fluid dynamics. Are you guys following me? We're getting into some real heavy stuff here. My class on advanced fluid dynamics will be like episode 36, and we're going to talk about how water pressure is affected and how different densities and parts per million can actually affect the fish's ability to determine light patterns and chase bait. God. Nah, just a little joke there. But no, seriously. So you'll notice the pattern, the tightness, how far that bait actually can stray, because as the vortex of water is forced around this wider lip, it will give way to more sway of the bait. So the waggle will be a little bit wider on a bait with a wider lip. Now, get into some of the thinner ones like this one here. Like we were talking about earlier, that Evergreen International. Notice that the vortex, the water, the current, the stream, jet stream, whatever you want to call it, is not going to get as wide on this, which will affect the bait more, causing it to stay in a tighter pattern and wiggle a lot less, because it's not actually able to force that water away. So now you get into some of these things like this. Like these are deep divers, and deep divers are interesting because now you're going to notice we've got this big paddle blade. Okay, so look at the, I mean, you're talking, this thing is almost a 1/2 inch wider, 1/4 inch on each side, which is going to give a big shimmy. But the thing I want us to talk about is this big old duck / beaver tail, like a duck bill or a beaver tail. Now, these are deep divers. These things will pin you anywhere between 10, I've seen them 25-foot versions. I mean, you're talking, this thing's got a bill like this big, you know, and the bait will actually just be this size. Unbelievable how deep you can get these things to go, but you're talking about a max crank on these things. You do not want these things to be put, you know, they're not going to swim correctly if they don't get down to their target depth. Again, I don't have anywhere to fish something like this. I have a couple of different channels where I run through some of these canals, and I might find something deep enough to fish this in. But I've pulled fish out of it. Let's just say that. I was making a funny joke one day and actually pulled a fish out using it one time, but it was raining, so that's footage you guys are going to never see. So, back to the different presentations. So now that we've gone over the lips, we've pretty much got a good grasp now on what we're talking about when we talk about square billed crankbaits / deep divers / crankbaits. I mean, so many lipless crankbaits and chatter baits, and it gets crazy, I know, but we're going to cover basic stuff here today, because I think it's good to just get an idea of where when people make reference to baits like this, exactly what they're talking about. So if someone was telling you, yeah, I was running a 3.5 deep diver, one of those 10-15s, and you know, and you're sitting there thinking, okay, what does that mean? Well, right off the bat, you know, you're going to be looking for a 3.5, which is going to put you up in something big like this. And then you're going to be looking for a deep diver model. So you know it's going to have a big nose like that. And then what you need to look at is the box that'll say what the depth is, and you can pin yourself right down on the exact same bait that individual was throwing and have a very successful day. Now this is going to come into play with a lot of you northern fishermen. You guys have got it made when it comes to strike zone action, fish set up in different areas in the column. These are a perfect method. A lot of guys think these are a trolling bait, but I'm going to tell you right now, you get some of these smaller ones, the little 1.5s, like, you know, this one here. You know, you got the 1.0s, which were a bit smaller. Those are very effective smallmouth baits. If you can come right across a rock ledge or something and get yourself, you know, a ledge being at 5 to 7 feet, and then you run a 10 to 15 footer right down the side of that thing and have it just, you know, literally drag. These things are great when they hit the bottom and they kick rocks and stuff. They bounce off all erratically. Another suggestion I could have for you is in the off cadence. Really pay attention to contact, because if you're not careful and you're in that burn it, there's a chance that fish caught up with it, ate it, and is still coming in that direction. And before you know it and you go to come up, there is actually a fish on. I think I've got video of that. I'm going to, maybe when we're done tonight, we'll try to figure out if we got a little video on that. We'll have a little bit of fun. But we've covered a lot of the basics so far, and now we're going to talk about a few other methods and a few other things that I find that have led me to greater success using square-billed crankbaits moving into this late spring, early summer months. I know it's going to sound crazy, but right now fish are kind of mobile where I am. I don't know if it's the same with you guys. It's that a lot of fish are post spawn. You know, you've got those late spawners. If your temperature's coming up, I don't know what you guys' temperature is looking like right now. So we're going to take a couple of seconds. You guys let us know, what's your temperature like? What's your water temperature look like? What stage are your fish in? We'll take just a couple of minute break. You guys hit up the chat. Let me know what kind of fish and temperatures you're looking like. Everybody says it's windy, but I'm going to be honest with you. If it's not windy, I'm not catching fish. On dead weather days, dead lake days, as far as I'm concerned. So let's hit a commercial, and I will see you guys in just a minute.
What's up, everybody? Hopefully today we catch some giants. You know it's fishing, bro. You never know how it's gonna go. Undisclosed location unless he's already said it. But this place has been known to produce 8s, 9s, 11s. Yeah, I mean, dude, they're out here, so we'll see what happens.
And guess what, guys? I wore my lucky fishing socks.
Socks on too, buddy. Heathensquad.com. Get yourself some. It makes you fish better. I don't know what the science is behind it, but if you wear these socks, these Heathensquad.com socks, you could probably catch yourself a couple tanks. It's in the science. Trust the science, right?
At least a 30% increase in your average, but that's not typical, but it happens.
And we are back. All right, let's give ourselves a second. Trust the Science is in the house. Robert Sharp, Iowa 60s. Ooh. I got wind ripping. It's hot as balls. Yeah, Ice, you nailed it. I saw Outlaw hit like a 7 or an 8 today. Another one. This guy is just crushing it. If you guys aren't, I know you guys are all subbed to him, so that's not even a big deal. You know he's subbed. You know you're all subbed to his channel. That's the only reason why I got any views. But I will say this. I want to say thank you for everybody that showed up tonight and is actually watching my stream, because I saw somebody that I thought, given that their subscriber count, should be crushing it, and dude had, poor guy had 6 people watching on his stream, and I thought to myself, I know that feeling, and God, I hope that doesn't happen to me tonight. You know what I mean? That is just a hurt. Oh, goodness. But, you know, hey, like I said, I'm lucky to get any views. I take my time with my editing. I make things last a long time, and I make, you know, months in between videos like there's some kind of big masterpiece, when in reality, it's just, I dread the 116 views. I dread it. All right, one of the things I want to talk to you guys about, one of the things that I find most important about my selection of crankbaits and when I decide to go fishing them, and this is going to apply to just about everybody that's in here, except the guy that pisses excellence. I don't know. Something about that guy, I don't know if he's crankbait capable. I think he's stuck on giant swim baits, and that's where he's at in life. And one of these days, it's going to pay off with a monster. So I hope I get a chance to fish there that day, because that'll be a lot of fun. I want to be the guy that grabs the net, because he ain't boat flipping it, but I'll grab the net. I think it'll be fun. So let me show you a lot of the different things that the industry has done in order to create a different series of bait, or at least take a spin on the baits that already exist. One company that I found out there, this is I think a River to Sea. They decided to put an additional weight in the nose to give that bait that almost 75 degree, 80 degree angle when the bait sits in the water, even when it's tied on, because this is the flotation style. So I'll break it down. I'll give you guys a little secret. What's so interesting about the crankbait is that when you're reeling the crankbait, it actually appears to be a small fish that's swimming along, but in a active feeding role, which means the head is down. This is traveling. This is how fish travel when they're just going from one place to another. But when they're hungry, they tend to be in this position. Now, what a bass or a target of, a predatory fish like a bass will do is actually wait until a fish is engaged in another activity. And then by nature, the ambush kicks in. So that's one of the things they do. Another thing that they like to do is if something floats back at its face, those crickets, that's funny. If something floats back at its face, it will tend to lash out at it. And that's kind of interesting too. It will attack it. And one of the nice things about the crankbait, if you utilize that off cadence, is that the baits will tend to float back and up. So back and up. Now, if I'm being pursued by something that's watching me and all of a sudden I come back, they don't swim backwards. I mean, they do, but I'm going to tell you that if they're interested enough to follow up on it and it begins to stop as you pause, so this thing's traveling, you stop, pause, and it rolls back and up, there's a pretty good chance on that back and up you're going to get hit. And you get hit pretty solid. So one of the things that I want to talk to you guys about when you're out choosing your crankbaits is do yourself a favor and invest in better hooks, or find models of crankbaits that already have the hooks that you're looking for. Now I'm going to tell you why. The industry standard is small wire hook. And when I say small wire, that's what I'm talking about. Those cute little wires, that's a standard J hook, single barb, 3 hook, 3 barb. No big deal. Little thin wire. But the better ones, as you start to look in the industry, why they cost a couple more dollars is because they go to an EWG style, much larger wire, much larger gap on the hook, better barb, stronger hook material. Guys, you know what that means. You can bring bigger fish in, even on some of the larger ones. I mean, here you go. Here's an EWG style for you. What do I mean by EWG? That's an extra wide gap hook. See that weird bend right here? It's not circular. It's not a standard J. It's got more of a gap, which means you're going to get a better hook set, better penetration when you pull this thing through the fish's face. So, again, take your time. Really pay attention to what you're getting. There's really cool stuff out there. I mean, this one here, I've gotten quite a few fish on this. This is a live target. It's 3 minnows, 3D hologram, square bill, standard fixed bill, 3 to 5 feet, tight, pretty tight. I mean, if you look at that profile, the profile is very similar to the body, so this one's waggle is going to stay right within its parameter. What's interesting about this one is this little concave area right here at the back, which makes it kind of interesting because as this one floats up, it tends to stray further back than a lot of my other crankbaits, and I think that's because they put this little notch here at the back. And I will tell you that I've gotten hit. This thing's all scarred. I wish I could show you guys. This thing is like really, really scarred up for being clear plastic because I've hit a lot of fish on this. Now, I'm not saying I put any 10-pounders in the boat on this. I'm just telling you that the ones that I threw at, they bit it. These things are going to range anywhere, guys. Weight-wise, you're really looking to stay into maybe, and I'm just being honest, 30-pound braid might be a little heavy on the 1/4 ounce. I might go down to 20-pound braid on a 1/4 ounce. I might throw 30-pound braid on the 1/2 ounce with a max out of 40. Anything over 40, I noticed, then becomes like a cable with these things, and it doesn't allow it to retrieve correctly. And that little bit of change to the way that the bait is supposed to move, you know, can really affect whether or not the fish is going to bite it. I have noticed that does happen. So you really want to pay a mind to what weight line you're running when running these. Now, a lot of people say fluorocarbon's the best, monofilament's the best. Again, I don't have a preference for that, and I'll tell you why. I don't break off. I use braid. So that kind of covers me. Clear Lake guys, if you guys are, you know, a lot of you up north fishermen and stuff like that. Oh, Wes says he's losing audio, Wes. Uh-oh. Hold on. What's going on, Wes? YouTube didn't say anything's going on. Can you hear me, Wes? Wes, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now, Wes? Maybe Wes was having trouble hearing me. I says you can't fish treble hooks and creeks in Jacksonville. No, there's a lot of places up towards Jacksonville that I probably wouldn't throw anything with more than one hook on at ice, and that's just so I don't end up involved in a homicide investigation, because you guys got it rough up there. Real rough. So now that we've talked about hook selection, guys, like I said, one thing that I will tell you is when you start to get into crankbaits and swim baits and all these other hard-bodied baits and you talk about hooks, be careful how big a wire hook you go. As crazy as it sounds, oversizing your hooks one up, totally acceptable. If you're coming in with a little number one, and you're thinking, okay, that's a number 1, but you're really wanting to throw a number 4, I don't advise that. I don't advise putting a 4 on a 1, maybe a 2 with a heavy wire, something in the EWG. The EWG, guys, is always going to be a heavy wire. The gauge is going to be a lot thicker. It's not going to be like a pierce its face. It's going to be more like a dig in and it's in there type of situation. So if you are interested in you know, keeping your fish on, it would behoove you to maybe go a size up with your hooks. Now, if you're coming in with a big old number 4 on an EWG and you're like, I'm going up to a 5, I'm just going to tell you, don't do it. It's not worth it, because then what ends up happening is as these things are traveling through the water, once again, these hooks are in a tucked back position. As it's moving, they will tuck back, but hooks that are too heavy will tend to fall, and they will manipulate the water that's trying to be focused around the bait itself, and they're going to put you in a bad situation as far as the hook hanging down where it's not supposed to be. So as to where these things are not weedless to say at all, they can be finessed properly through weeds, trees, tree limbs, brush piles. They are effective at all these types of situational fishing that you're going. That's why I was talking earlier about that contact. So if I use one of these, and we'll just grab one for example, and I make contact with the stick. So here we go. I make contact with the stick, right? I immediately stop my reel. This thing floats up and away, and I continue to reel, and it goes back down to depth. I didn't actually allow the hooks to hit because I was paying attention, and as soon as I felt that contact and I allowed it to go free. Now, if you're like me or most of the guys that I know, that was instant contact hook set, which immediately brought it this way up and over the stick. Or you'll have the other part, which is you went too high with your hooks, and your hooks will immediately hook into that tree, and then you're using some kind of lure retrieval tool, or you're going to break the eye off your favorite 7-footer. I've got to take a couple of minutes, guys, and actually get into the music on this thing. I've been doing laundry. I've just been so busy. You know, life, it's getting busy for us. I'm telling you. I'm getting older. I had a birthday. I feel it now. No, not really. All right, guys. So, hook changes, very important. Do I suggest them? Absolutely, I suggest them. I think they're a great idea. Crankbaits in general are a good idea. Given your water coverage, guys, really pay attention to what you got going on. Really, if you need something in that 1 to 3, 3 to 5, or even a deep diver, and you're looking for a consistent bait to stay in that area, but your fish are active, your fish are moving, your fish are in chase and search mode, these are very, very, very effective methods of getting your bait in that strike zone and really putting those fish to the test. That is a very important thing when it comes to summertime and moving fish. You're going to notice that water temperatures are constantly rising. You're going to notice in the evening they're falling. In my personal opinion, not a pro fisherman or anything like that, but I will say that fish tend to be on the move in rise and fall temperatures, like the day and the night that we experience down here in Florida. Sometimes we can almost get a 20-degree swing depending on certain areas in Florida, so you will have actual transitions of fish that go from shallow areas to deeper areas, only because, you know, water that's 84, 85 during the day then becomes 68 over the night, you know, and they don't like that. They don't like that far of a drop, so the fish will tend to go deeper. Now, if you can catch those fish in transition, you can catch those fish moving, you can catch those fish in a position where they're looking to pursue their bait. The crankbait is a very effective method of doing that. There's also a lot of different paddle tail small plastics that'll give it that same thing, and there's another method if you're looking for the small plastics or soft plastic methods. But I more tend to try to put my pellet self in positions where I can throw a lot of hooks. I kind of like throwing a lot of hooks. I know I got to clean grass off my stuff a lot. I know I got any type of vegetation. I know I'm getting hung up, and I know I'm going to have some issues. But I feel confident enough with my sweep hook set style and a lot of the techniques that I've learned on not just bringing the fish in with that power, but sometimes bringing the fish in with that finesse, can really make a difference on whether or not you're going to bring that fish to the boat, or if it was just going to be, did you see that, brother, types of moments. Those are never any fun. Those are never any fun for anybody, believe you me. Hold on, guys. All right. So, any questions? What's everybody been doing? I said happy birthday. Mark, happy birthday. Thanks, man. The water turns over up here. Yeah. See, Robert, no, you're exactly right. I've noticed that same thing. I've noticed that same issue. And down here, I wouldn't really call it a turnover. I really think it's a temperature issue. I really want to say that when that temperature, the effect that the temperature has on the water itself, as well as the moon, I am a firm believer in the moon. I'm thinking about putting together a whole episode of the moon. Hey, you guys want to do something funny? Look at this. So I did this thing right here, right? So we can have like a whole deep thoughts moment, So there's a little something for everybody to watch on one side, and then there's just me thinking about things and pondering aloud, and you guys are going to travel through the universe on an adventure with me. Well, guys, that officially ends this segment of Tackle Talk, episode 16, Crankbaits and Why So Many. But if you want to hang out for a little bit, guys, we're going to hang out for a little while. We're just going to shoot it, talk with you guys in the chat, because I'm just the worst guy at talking about the chat when I go to talking about the mission, the actual events of the evening, the whiteboard, the plan. Trust the plan, brother. Trust the plan. So we'll hang out for a little bit. How's fishing? Anybody been fishing? Moon's 100%. Ice, I'm with you, man. I'm with you 100% on that moon thing. This whole blood moon, I missed it the other night. I should have set up some kind of what do they call it? Time lapse. I should have set up a time lapse. I had a perfect coverage. I could have hooked it right up. The only thing was we got a lot of rain, and I was really, really worried that if I set up a time lapse on my viewer, the rain would absolutely crush it. Like, there's no way this thing is going to sustain any type of moisture whatsoever on my viewer, and there's no way I'm going to leave it out there with a GoPro attached to it, and then the GoPro has to be plugged in because this was like an event. I don't trust my batteries without them being plugged in, so that would have been a no good. That would have been a no good. And before OM goes live. Yeah, he'll be on here in a little bit, maybe. I don't know. Buddy's been busy, man. He went fishing today. He's been killing it. I'm not allowed on the boat anymore. I used to have a buddy I used to fish with. It was fun. I miss him. I miss him a lot. I miss your mus. Nah, we just both been super busy, man. Schedule for both of us has been terrible. I've got like 3 different fishing episodes that I haven't even started cutting on the back end, and that is no fun. Like, I'm just, you know, I really want to get it done. I really want to put myself on that. Yeah, you like that, huh? Crazy super red flower blood moon with eclipse, and I think there was a solar flare. And the solar flare morphed into, oh, there goes the dogs. You guys can probably hear that. The solar flare morphed into a whole series of things. Hey, on a serious note, did anybody see that there was a meeting today about, what do they call them? Unknown aerial vehicles, UAVs. Yeah, that was pretty interesting. If anybody missed that. Just, talking about the moon and all that stuff, little people. You never know. You never know what's going on out there. That is for serious. Mark Pappas in here. Yeah, the sun's been active. I mean, I have been noticing crazy changes as far as the temperatures go down here. It has not stopped. It's been one after another, after another, after another. One day it's hot, it's cold. I think we got like 4 or 5 inches of rain in the last 2 days. This evening, it was just supposed to be a little bit of rain. My back porch flooded by my pool. I'm watching that. I got the front yards got watered, saturated from the other day. Our power was out for almost 3 hours. That was never any fun. Nobody likes their power going out for like 3 hours. Trust me. Yeah, you're waiting for pigs to fly, Ice, huh? Yeah, that's a funny one. That is a funny one. Pigs fly, when pigs fly. Yeah, no, at this point, man, goodness. We have got a mess. A mess on our hands. But yeah, I was hoping to surprise myself with a May birthday present. I was hoping to get like maybe 2 more years out of the car just so I could have a couple of years on the boat payment, but that didn't work out, man. So what are you going to do? I could always take a line of credit, do the right thing, go in debt, let my credit score go way up, only to have my bank fold up, and then I don't have the ability to pay for any of that stuff anyway. So I've been thinking that might be the plan, and just let it all go. Just go like $250K in debt overnight and be like, look, my credit's awesome. I can't pay for anything, but my credit's awesome. I see. I don't even want to get into that. So yeah, up and coming fishing trips, man. I get a chance. I might get a chance to go fish my my NXT Black. I might get a chance to go out fly fishing for redfish. I met a dude who actually does this. Like, he does it, and I just haven't been able to link up. Maybe toward the end of the month, I'm trying to set up another fishing trip because I haven't fished with Buddy in, good God, I can't tell you how long. So I'm trying to set that fishing trip up to get down with Buddy again one of these days. And then I got to get down and try this fly fishing thing while this season's still going, because I guess this is kind of like a hit or miss thing. Yeah, Ice said not for long. Yeah, that's what I'm hearing, Ice. Like, this is like oh, you missed your moment, and it's gone. It's over. That's just kind of what happened. As funny as it sounds, that would suck, but I guess that's the way the ocean works. I don't know. I guess that's kind of one of my things. Bass fishing, I know there's not very, they're not going to go very far. When you're talking about fishing in the ocean, you're talking about like, this is my spot. It's one of those things where it's like, buddy, it's the ocean. It might be in this general area, but there's no spots. When you're fishing the lake, there's kind of like spots. And I don't mean that like spots, like this 5-foot area. I mean, like, there's spots, but there's also, you get a pattern. You start to know the places when you travel them enough. And I noticed that when you get somebody that really pays attention to what's going on, like somebody in the chat, Buddy is a real deal brain mapper, man. Like, he goes down there and studies those places to the point where we pull through certain areas and certain, breaks in the pattern as far as the reed walls and stuff, and he's like, yeah, right up around this corner is where you caught that 5-pounder, and he'll run that same trip, but he's not looking at any electronics. So that's kind of interesting that he's actually capable of remembering all that without looking at electronics. But as you do it enough, I mean, if you fish a certain place enough, you should get that mindset. Now, granted, being the guy in the back of the boat, I don't pay as much attention to where we're going as I do where we've been. You know what I mean? I start to notice everything from a different angle. So when we turn around to it, I don't really get a chance to see what he was looking at when we go into areas. So it's really difficult to kind of, map it out from looking backwards. Not to mention, when you're pulling as many dinks as I do, it takes a minute. You're trying to get fish off. You're trying to get fish off the line because you're in the motions. You're in the motions. Well, guys, any crankbait questions? Anybody caught any big fish? Anybody doing anything this week? Anything exciting that we can talk about? Because at this point, I have given you guys a ton of information on crankbaits. And if you're in an area, I suggest them. I will definitely suggest them. And I will tell you that I've given you information to really look at and think about. Finding mushrooms. Nice. I've given you information on what to look at when it comes to buying these things and what they're used for. So it's not as much science and math as it is just knowing what you're fishing, the area you're fishing, the depth you're looking at, where the fish are setting up. Again, try to get it to the bottom. Try to bring it through as much cover and vegetation as you can, because what you're going to find out is that once in a while you're not going to get caught up on something. That thing's going to get tore. It's going to get hit. It's going to get devastated, because the fish get pretty violent. They do get pretty violent when it comes to these things, but the majority of your strikes are going to be fish that are chasing. So remember, there's a pretty good chance you could actually have a fish on there. It just does not realize. The fish might realize it's hooked, but in reality it's still swimming the same direction. So take advantage of that. Don't let the fish leave the water when you're running these types of baits. You really don't want it coming out of the water and doing anything spectacular, because there's a pretty good chance he's going to fling that bait. They get flailing around, pull those hooks out. But if you change up your hooks and you do everything that we talked about doing tonight, you can find yourself in a much higher hookup percentage, and it might have just been a small change in your hook size. It might have been a small change in your line diameter. It might have been a small change in your gear. I tend to throw anything over 6.6. Anything over 6.6 on a crankbait, medium all the way to fast on my action. I prefer fast with a heavy. I do prefer a heavy rod with a fast action in the 7.2, 7.4 area when it comes to this. Remember, guys, the shorter the rod, the more accurate the cast. The longer the rod, less accurate, greater distance. So I really try to get these things as far from the boat as I can. My goal is to catch fish that don't even realize that I'm there, because I've noticed that those fish are going to be more apt to hit pretty close to within the first couple turns of the reel. The first couple shows, the first couple presentations. Now, granted, if you do decide to go throwing chatterbaits, don't get lost in the single throw. Don't get lost in the single cadence. Don't get lost in the burn'em. Really mentally try to switch it up. You might make 2-3 casts in the same place, but use 3 different retrieves. Use the drag. Pull across, pull through fast once in a while. Just give it a stop and then give it a good, 6-7 foot pull. And what I mean by that is you're not actually going to move your body physically 6-7 foot. When I use a 7-foot rod, if I take it from 3 feet to my right and bring it 3 feet to my left, that's 6 total feet. And then my rod length is 7 foot. So that's going to be roughly 6.5, 7 foot. I'm going to end up moving the lure on a pull, which sometimes triggers a strike. Sometimes it's just more to clear the bait itself from any type of debris or vegetation that it might have picked up. So that's another method you might think about using. Use that pull. Sometimes it triggers a strike. Give it a pause right after that. Literally let it float right up to the top. You'd be surprised. Sometimes that fish, the bait itself mimics a fish that gave it its gusto last go and called it, and it's just floating up. Some of them have faster buoyancy speeds. Some of them come back to the surface a lot faster than others. Some are take a real close look at them. They have a countdown style, which will actually allow the bait just to sit neutral. As it comes down, you can stop it, and the bait will literally stop. It'll just stay right where you had it, and then you can pull it again, and you can kind of select where the bait will go down as far as the depth, and it'll stay there. Those are a neutral buoyancy style square bill. Those are rather interesting. Myself, personally, I like the fact that they rise and fall back away from objects. That makes them a little bit more versatile, but again, with heavier braid, you're not going to realize that you were coming through that. You're going to get yourself hung up pretty quick. So pick your battles, pick your battles. Know what you're using and what you're looking to throw. So again, guys, thank you so much for hanging out this evening. I appreciate it, and I'm glad everybody got a chance to hang out. I think that's pretty cool. Miss you guys. Not going to see you guys anymore. Okay, yeah, no, it's enough of that. Now, but we'll be back next week. Do me a favor, if you're new to the channel, if you're just getting this for the first time, if you're just checking out the channel for the first time, listen, we get more in depth on stuff. In the beginning, I want to have my series kind of just give a brief layout, kind of in depth. Some of the stuff's going to seem really in depth. Some of the stuff's going to seem really mundane. We're going to get into the more complex stuff after we learn the basics, because I think learning the basics will change your fishing game in its own. And I think some of the more advanced techniques might be hurting your fishing game as well. So maybe we'll have an episode coming up on do's and don'ts and things that have worked for me and things that haven't, guys. Listen. Any way you look at it, guys, it's been real. It's been fun. We'll see you guys on the next one. See ya.